Last year, after years of trying to start a reading habit, I finally did it. If you just clicked on this video, then you're probably like me, where you've been trying to start a reading habit. You know that books are gonna enrich your life, but you just can't get into them and it's just not working for you. So I am sharing with you today a couple of tips on how to start a reading habit, because starting a reading habit isn't as hard as you think it is. Stay tuned to the end of this video to hear my absolute biggest tip on how to start a reading habit. So the way that I'm going to structure this is, first of all, why should you start a reading habit? Second, how I started my reading habit, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know how I did this. Third, I'm also going to give some resources so that you can be the most successful in starting your reading habit. And finally, I'm going to give you the best tips on how to stick with this reading habit. So first off, why should you start a reading habit? We all know that reading is really important for like school and all that, but nobody ever really thinks about why reading is a good hobby to do on your spare time. Personally, I've learned to look at things differently than I did before I started my reading habit. Like, reading about different characters kind of allows you to look at things in a different perspective. That's one of the things that benefits people who read a lot, is that it gives them a little bit more empathy. Obviously, learning is an added benefit of reading, but that's not why people read most of the time. I mean, personally, I like to read because I like to be entertained for more than the span of a movie. I've always grown up watching movies, and when I get to the end of a movie, I've always felt like there should have been more, like I should have learned a little bit more about these characters and stuff. But when you read a book, you learn so much more about characters and you just see them in a whole new light. So if you're like me and you want to know more than what a TV show or a movie provides, books are a really great way to just consume more, be more entertained, or like build your own imaginary world. But chances are, if you're already watching this, then you already want to start a reading habit and you know that it is beneficial to you, or it's like the thing that you want to do. So I'm not going to get further into that, and I'll just go into my own personal experience. So growing up, I never read in school. I never read on my spare time. I never read in school. I wasn't one of those people who grew up reading books. When we were given assigned readings, I would never read the book. I would only just like get the summary of it from SparkNotes or wherever and just like write an essay based on that. Somehow I made it through high school doing that, and I guess a lot of people go through high school doing that, but basically like I just never read anything. Then I joined the Navy right after high school, and I was in the Navy for 6 years, and the only time I would read the whole time that I was in the Navy was when I was on the ship, because we had no internet, or the internet was really slow. So occasionally I would pick up a book, but I would only get through like maybe 1 or 2 books in an entire like underway or something. Even when I was on the ship, there was still a lot more stuff to do. Like, I was working pretty much like 24/7. And then once we got back from being on the ship, I would not read at all. During my whole time that I was in the Navy, I probably read like 4 or 5 books, but I could probably count on my hands how many books I had read the entire 6 years that I was in the Navy. So I understood what it was like to get into a book and just like be so happy to read and finish a book, and like that feeling of accomplishment and everything. So ever since then, I've just been wanting to start a reading habit, but just never like made it a priority. Fast forward at the beginning of 2020, and I made it a goal to read 12 books. So 1 book a month seemed pretty reasonable to me, and I was like, okay, I can do 1 book a month, that's fine. However, it didn't end up working out that way in the first few months of it. I just kind of like started reading 1 book and then gave up on it. But then the pandemic started, and we all know what happens then. You're at home all day, every day, not much to do. So that's when I really started reading, and I feel like the choices that I made at this point on were what helped me get into a reading habit. And at this very moment, obviously you're watching my YouTube channel all about books, and I made it a goal at the beginning of the year to read 40 books. I am at 38 books, which is way more books than I've ever read in my entire life. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm very proud of myself for being able to get this far. So next, I'm going to give you some resources that should help you in your reading journey. First is any app that will help you check out ebooks or audiobooks from your local public library. I use Libby, and Libby's been working great for me. They have a lot of choices on there, and they also have a lot available, but it really depends on your public library and how many people are like a part of it, because the more people that are a part of it, it is gonna have a lot more copies of those books. But all you have to do is sign up at your local public library, get a library card or like a library number, and then you put that into Libby or whatever app that you use, and then you could start reading books. And you can even read your books off of your Kindle if you have one. Like you could have it sent to your Kindle and like you could just read the ebooks on there. I mostly use these for audiobooks, and I'll explain later like the whole audiobook thing, but it really helps me save money because audiobooks are really expensive. And for those of you who are unable to or just don't want to read physically, audiobooks are a really great way to read books. And if you could save money on checking out audiobooks and ebooks and stuff, then definitely use a library app. Next is Goodreads. So Goodreads is a social media website where you can talk about or review books. This is a website where most people will put their reading goals on there. For example, earlier I talked about how I made it a goal of mine to read 40 books, and I put that goal on Goodreads. You can also mark the progress that you're at with a book. You could tell people what you're currently reading, what you've read, what you plan to read, what you want to read. You can make categories of books that you want to like save. Like I have a folder dedicated to books that made me cry. As long as you're friends or if you're following a person, you can see all of their updates on books and you can see their reviews and all that. And it's just like a really cool place to just see where other people are at or to update people on where you're at with your reading goals. I have my Goodreads link down below if you want to see my Goodreads, if you want to follow me on there. I never really talk about that because I think it's just understood amongst booktubers and stuff, but it's there for you if you want to follow me on there. The next resource is not free, but it also helped me out a lot in starting my reading habit, so I do want to point it out. It might be good to invest in a Kindle. They have some used Kindles out there for like 50 bucks and stuff, and the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of customization when it comes to having a Kindle. You can adjust the size, you can adjust the brightness on it, so you can actually read it like when you're in bed about to go to sleep, or you can also read it when you're out like at the beach or something. It's not gonna have that glare that your phone has if you read on your phone. Like I said, you can resize the text. So if you have trouble seeing things, you could just resize the text and make it bigger. They have different fonts, so you can actually change the font on there. And I do believe that they have a font for people with dyslexia. So if you have trouble reading, obviously you can use an audiobook, but if you actually do like putting your eyeballs on paper, then use the dyslexic font. And then also some of the time ebooks are cheaper, but I would like compare the ebooks to the paperback or the hardcover versions because sometimes they can be like the same or even more. But for the most part, ebooks are cheaper because it's literally just a digital product. It's not a physical product that needs to be made. It's just created once and then it's sold for an infinite amount of times at no extra cost. So it should be cheaper ideally. I know that there are some classics that are only like $1, so if you want to get into classics, then that's an option for you. But like I said, if you want to check out the ebooks from Libby or another like library app, it's completely free and they just send it to your Kindle and you just read it on your Kindle. It's really convenient. So finally, let's get into the tips on how to start a reading habit. This is gonna follow the framework from Atomic Habits, and according to like the whole structure of Atomic Habits, it is to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So it's gonna follow those general like guidelines because I think that framework is really good for starting any habit, really. So my first tip is to find a few good books that you already want to read. You may have some or maybe like one at least that you would really like to read. Notice how I say a few good books and not just one good book, and we will get to that later, but for now just focus on getting a few good books that you'd like to read. If you have friends that are already into reading, I would ask them what books you would like. Your friends are gonna want you to read with them and like talk about the same books together because it's just fun to do that. So they're gonna recommend you the books that they found were really good, and then also they know you the best, so they're gonna recommend you things that you would like. If you still don't have a few books that you would like to read, I do have a video titled Book Recommendations for New Readers or Book Recommendations for Beginners, I can't remember, but I will link it down in the description so that you can check that out. And I might make another one later, or maybe like one for classics, because I know a lot of people want to get into classics. My second tip is to always have a book with you. I personally don't bring a physical book with me all the time, but I do always have my phone on me, which always has an audiobook on it, so I always have an audiobook available to listen to. Or if you have a Kindle, you can bring your Kindle, and it's a lot smaller than a physical book, and you could just open that up and start reading. Obviously, you can download the Kindle app, so you could also read on your Kindle app. It's just very feasible to be bringing a book with you, whether that's an audiobook, ebook, physical book. It's just really convenient if you have your phone on you already. Make sure that you're always reminded of the book that you're reading. I know I'm a forgetful person, so sometimes I forget that I'm reading a book. So I would put it somewhere where you know you'll see it, like on your bed, so that when you're about to go to bed, you pick up your book and start reading right before bed. Or you put it on your nightstand, or you put it on your kitchen, I don't know, on your desk before you start working, or in your bathroom so that you read a little bit before you brush your teeth. I don't know. But always make sure that you see it at least once per day so that you remember that you are trying to start this reading habit and that you're trying to get through this book. My third tip is to make time to read. You already know I was gonna say this tip, but honestly, if you really want to do this, then you're gonna have to make it a priority. It's honestly not an excuse anymore to say, I don't have time for something. Really, it's just which things that you want to prioritize more. And this has to do with everything, basically. I mean, unless you have like 3 jobs or you're in school and you're working at the same time. But even then, I would say on your commute, you could listen to your audiobook, or earlier, like I said, you could brush your teeth and read on your Kindle or something. I don't know. Something that motivates me to get up in the morning is when I put on an audiobook and I just start doing mindless things like making myself breakfast or brushing my teeth. I personally am at that point now where I don't really need to make time. I just kind of just do it. But at the very beginning, you really do need to make time to read at least a little bit. I know when I started my reading habit, like I said, it was during the beginning of the pandemic. So I was at home all day trying to do homework and stuff. And I would do these Pomodoro sections where you have like 5-minute breaks in between. And that's when I would get the most reading done. I read the entire book of Jane Eyre, just like doing 5-minute bursts of just reading it, and I ended up finishing it, which is so crazy to me. Give yourself small time frames. I think this is a really huge tip. Making the time smaller will make you more inclined to read. I mean, if you really think about it, if you're giving yourself time, like at the end of the day, you're saying, I'm gonna read for 30 minutes. It seems less intimidating when you say, okay, I'm going to read only for 5 minutes. And if it's less intimidating to you, you're more likely to do it. More often than not, when you start reading and do the 5-minute time frame, you're gonna want to continue reading because you're gonna get into the book, whatever book you chose. So at the very least, I would say give yourself like 5 minutes, and if you want to continue reading, you can obviously continue reading. Baby steps is a key. I don't remember what tip this is anymore, but the next tip that I have is to get your vibes right. I don't know about you guys, but I just really love the vibes of like reading. I think libraries are such a vibe, just like going there and seeing all the books and stuff. Life is obviously unpredictable, and you know, when like the whole pandemic thing was happening, you couldn't actually go to the library and read and stuff. But now I think it's getting to the point where things are starting to open back up, so maybe you could go to a library or maybe to a cafe and go read a book. It really depends on you and what you prefer. But personally, when I'm at home and I'm not like at the library or anything like that, and I want to have like a nice good reading session, most of the time I like to get myself a hot beverage, whether that's tea or coffee or hot cocoa. When it's raining, obviously, like that's the best time to read. I used to like watching those ambience videos, and they had like a lot of good sounds in there to like get me in that headspace of like a quiet library or something like that. And the sounds that I really preferred were like the page turning sounds or like the writing sounds. Oh, also the fireplace, that's like a must. I go back and forth about the rain sounds, but a lot of people like the rain sounds, especially now that it's summer and it's not raining as much. My next tip is to reward yourself every time you read a book or every time you reach a milestone in reading. I think it's a really good idea to have that reading goal on Goodreads. Whenever you set up your goal on Goodreads, it has like a progress bar on there, and every time you finish a book, the progress bar goes a little bit more. So every time I finish a book on Goodreads, I update my Goodreads and that progress bar goes up a little bit and my brain gets like a little dopamine hit. Having a Goodreads account and having that goal set up definitely helps, like your little reward system. But I guess to me also, buying more books is also another like little dopamine hit for like, yeah, this is a good thing that I should probably continue doing. Talking to your friends about it, being able to say that you've read such and such amount of books, buying yourself a nice meal or something, whatever you choose, give yourself a little bit of a reward for every time you finish a book. That's really gonna help your brain in thinking that this is a good thing and I should continue doing this thing and just like, you know, keep going. Lastly, and this is my biggest tip ever, I say this tip all the time. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. I say this to literally everyone that tells me, hey Janelle, I want to start a reading habit. What do I do? Remember when I said get a few good books and not just one good book to read? I say that because I want you to put down a book every time you feel like you don't like it or it's going too slow for you. When I heard this tip, and I can't remember who I heard it from, it's just like my mind was blown. Everything just clicked for me, you know? I realized that there's no point in wasting your time reading something that you don't like or that you're not interested in. If you're starting a reading habit, the most important thing is that you're reading. And if you're reading something that you don't like or that you're not interested in, are you really gonna pick up that book again? No. So read things that you're truly enjoying, things that you're excited to know what happens next. Yeah, there's no use wasting your time reading something that you don't like, obviously. And I guess that's the simplest way that I could put it. If you're already a reader, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch my channel who are already readers, please leave a comment on your biggest tips on how to start a reading habit, because I would love for more people to read more books. I think reading is a really enjoyable hobby and you learn so much from reading. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. I have a lot of confidence in you that you will start this reading habit as long as you follow my tips. Let me know if this video helped you out, because it would be so awesome if you started a reading habit. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Comment anything else you want to comment down below, and subscribe because I post new videos twice a week, and hit that notification bell so you could be notified every time I upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!